When is the 2026 Ohio State University homecoming game?
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. Now I see that I was muted.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Hi there, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
You're muted.
Everybody forgets to unmute.
You're muted, Dan.
Did you have a chance to go through that little brochure? Right?
Well, the catalog, yeah, I glanced
The catalog.
yeah, I glanced through it and I'll return it probably tomorrow. Been a little
No
bit.
hurry, no hurry.
Yep.
Hi, Doug. How you doing?
You're muted, Doug.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
When do
Yeah,
you
I'm
come
good.
home?
March 5th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. How are y'all doing?
Oh,
We had snow this morning, or yeah,
A
just
desperate,
about that much.
Yeah.
But otherwise, no snow.
Yeah, yeah.
well,
Well,
you're going to miss all the guest speakers in February, although you could catch them, by Zoom or screen or streaming, I guess. Well, by streaming.
yeah, I've been streaming. Yeah.
Good, good.
Yeah. What'd y'all think of Todd's talk about the Friedman book, which is one of my fave books lately?
Yes, it was good.
Yeah, I had never read it, but he was quoting a lot, and I was extraordinarily impressed that someone in 2020 could foresee at least half of the decade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
I recommend the book. I've found it very reassuring and optimism instilling.
Is it an easy read in like, is there just so much data or
No, it's an easy read and it's an interesting presentation of American history
okay.
because he identifies those two cycles by going through our history in a reasonably fast but thorough way and with his perspective. So yeah, it's that's what makes it convincing. Yeah, it's a good read, and I thought a very very enjoyable read. Anybody I've talked to that has read it agrees.
I just got a brief financial overview from Dick Burkhart by email. If any of you want to tune into your email, I printed mine. I'm gonna go get it.
It looks good.
Hi, Dick.
We're
Hi, Luba.
income is over budget, expenses are under budget. That's all it is.
Hey, Dick, you look like you have more hair in that picture that comes
Oh,
up,
yeah, yeah.
or it's blown
I'm
all
getting old. I'm getting
around.
older.
Cindy,
I,
did you send an email to Todd? Was he included in that?
Yeah, he's on the list. Yeah.
Okay.
One brief thing to mention a minute before our meeting starts, and that is Bruce Springsteen just put out a song called The Streets of Minneapolis.
Whoa.
Oh,
Wow.
He names names, so
oh,
I
Oh,
recommend give it a listen.
mm.
Oh yeah.
On YouTube?
I know it's on Spotify. I came across it on X.
Mhm.
Huh.
yeah. So you've heard it already.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it's very good.
Okay.
Good.
So if I ask my Spotify to play it, is there a name for it? What was the name for it? Streets of what?
Streets of Minneapolis.
Mm, mm, mm,
Wow.
mhm.
Mhm.
Well, he's going to be on Mr. Trump's crap list, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But Trump's been forced to back off a little, at least to pretend to back off anyway. But that's only because even a lot of Republicans are offended by it. The law and order Republicans have to think about, are they really serious about law and order?
Right.
They should have done that a long time ago.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, folks, I'm getting my agenda up here. And we'll go ahead and begin. Welcome to all of our guests here. Thanks for being here. We have the agenda that went out. And do we have any amendments to that? It's a full one, and we may be pressed to get through it all, especially with some robust discussions. So we may need to prioritize a bit. So, any suggestions on that? I'd welcome them. If not, we'll just plow through. Our minutes from the last meeting, that was December 17th. Any amendments to that? Or can we do an approval on that? Hearing none? Oh,
None.
okay,
Yep.
hearing none. We'll approve those. Our next meeting would fall on the typical dates of the third Wednesday for our agenda setting with the executive committee, and then the meeting itself on the 25th. Do those, any conflicts with those dates, or can we assume that will work for everyone? We'll go ahead and take those then. And a floating trustee for the next executive committee meeting.
Well, maybe me.
Thank you, Luba. Okay.
These are the numbers, right? And then we're.
Todd, you surprised me.
Did
You're
I?
you're full of surprises.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that I'm surprising somebody.
You have the floor if you'd like it.
Okay, yeah, I really don't have anything to report. Everyone knows I'm going on a month sabbatical starting this end of this week. I tried to hopefully prepare the congregation as much as possible for coping with whatever happens between now and then. I know it's a different surprise every day. So I'll be monitoring things, and if I feel it's necessary for me to make a comment or step in, I will. But we'll just kind of see how it goes. Everyone knows they can contact me in an emergency, but otherwise I'll intend at least to lay low. That'll be my next month.
And have you talked to anyone about the Zoom situation? That's the number
Nick,
of
thanks.
people.
I saw your email just this morning.
Right.
There's been about 3 people who have mentioned wishing they still could Zoom.
Mhm.
The problem is not on our end. We can Zoom. The problem is on the Zoomers end, right? We would need somebody who would be willing to host the Zoom
Mhm.
meeting, right? Because you can't
Okay.
just leave it open to anybody popping in and not having somebody who can control the meetings, cut mics, whatever they might have to do. So that's the problem. If
Okay.
there were somebody or some buddies and Stephen Palmer was another one who mentioned to me, and I think maybe Judy Durham. I talked with her.
Yeah, I know
These
some
are-
others too.
Yeah, these are all members who are members and supporters of our church that live, far enough away they can't come in person.
Mhm.
So, but that would I meant to say that to you, so I'm glad you brought it up. But yeah, if there's a way to find 1 or 2 people who'd be willing to facilitate the Zoom meeting, absolutely, would love to have it back.
Yeah, I'll put that out and see if I can get someone who'll take the bait.
Okay, good.
Okay. As many of you know, I wasn't at the last meeting. I don't really have much to report this time, except I do want to say thanks to Tom for the materials that you gathered up for us, particularly on our strategic planning and capital improvements, financing sort of things. That was a lot of extra credit homework. So thanks for doing that, Tom.
Welcome.
Luba,
Oh,
ops,
okay.
ops team?
Yes, the meeting of January 13, there were only 3 people, including me, at that meeting, and that is why Rebecca began with identifying the problem to find volunteers for the operations team. She considers shifting the ops meetings day and time, perhaps to attract new candidates and maybe to accommodate Todd, as she said. At the meeting of the staff, it was decided to change the status of our child care workers to non-employees, since the church doesn't have to report the earnings less than 2,000. This will save money and the time of the bookkeeper who works 2 days a week and still struggles with payroll.
Hmm.
There was a meeting between Rebecca and financial team, and the discussion there went well. Darl is stepping up to do a fiscal year's full audit. And it was said with the end of the calendar year, taxes statements will be ready this month. As far as UUA certification, it will be or is in the process of being completed, along with the verified number of church members and the donation of 500 for the UUA. As far as the building and grounds news, Julianne continues research on the refrigerators. Donation of art cabinets allowed to free some space for storage. And evidently, it's time to do inventory of chairs because the last one was done either in 2015 or 2016. A new storage processing information signage will be revised to remind the renters, different teams, and volunteers who are hosting what has to be done. Other topics covered during that meeting were Requiem service changed to the first Sunday of February and emergency procedures manual to be updated, names and contact information in particular. Rebecca sends her wishes for the board to make a new strategic planning a perpetual document that can be reviewed and not reinvented or invented anew. She also encourages the board to look for more young people to serve on the board of trustees. But how
Okay.
to do that, God knows.
Mhm.
That's my report. And the next is I am supposed to say that the um, the the approved meetings of the Board of Trustees November meeting. The approved meetings were forwarded to Rebecca. That's it.
Very good. Thank you.
Question, Tom?
Yeah, let me see. Let's see. Okay, audit, good, 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 good. You mentioned $500, which is a donation or our dues to UUA. How about NAUA? We all
Um,
had $500 for NAUA.
I haven't heard her say anything about NAUA.
Okay, and under the new storage processing information signage, I don't understand what that is.
It is a document where it is laid out. So what needs to be done, like what you do when you come and what you do when your meeting is over, everything is finished. For example, where to put stuff,
Oh, okay.
or to clean the tables, for example, or collect this and put it in certain places.
Okay, and then under that emergency procedures document, as we know, Justin isn't here. He may join us later, but he has reviewed that document. Were you all aware of that? Do you think they were aware that he was working on that?
I was aware, but it was not discussed at the meeting. I'm just reporting what was said at the meeting. Personally, I talked to Justin when I was in the church, and he showed to me what he was concerned about. So it will be in his report. Evidently, that would be something as I understand part of that emergency
Okay,
manual.
good. Thank you.
Yes, Tom, I was just looking at the budget information I got from Rebecca. It's kind of hard to read, but it looks like the NAWA donation is being made on a monthly basis, and they're halfway through. They've paid $250 already out of the $500 due to
Oh, okay.
NAUA.
Good, thank you.
So it's the same as before.
Right, it's just being done on a monthly basis.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
And Dick, are there other financial comments that you have for us?
Well, there's a separate treasurer's report. Um, you want something else particular right now?
In anything that you might have to report, I don't know that there's any quarterly report to share with us, but if you have any comments related to information you have?
Well, just the treasurer's report. Do you want me to give that now?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it was just I finally got Rebecca's report just this afternoon. A profit and loss statement, and then a budget balance statement, and I had to ask her for a budget up to date expense versus budget expense, and that's a very important. And so her report's not very good. It was very hard to read. I had to use my Zoom thing a lot, but overall, it looks better than it has in, I think, in recent years. And if anyone else has some reasons why, I'm not quite sure, but the first 6 months, um, pledge income was what, quite a bit more, um, by quite a ways, over $10,000 more, um, income, and mostly in pledges. Actually, more than that in pledges versus, um, the budgeted pledges. Of course, that may be because there's some people who have been paying their pledges early, and maybe I don't know how those typically run through the year right now. But but it did also show that the the fundraising was, yeah. See, the total income was, yeah, well, about 14,000 more than expected the first 6 months. But the pledge income was more like $24,000 more. Um, and then the fundraising revenue was, actually, I think we budgeted for 6 months 10,000. It was 14,000, so that's doing very well. Um, I see, no, I see, no, that was unpledged donations. Unpledged donations are coming in also a little bit ahead of the normal, 14,000 versus 10,000. Whereas the fundraising revenue is just under. We budgeted like more like 14,000 for 6 months, since 12,300. So the fundraising is also coming very well. Facility usage is maybe a little bit behind, but overall the income is looking very good for this time of year, and expenses were almost uniformly a little bit less than the budget, except Tom may like to know that there was about $5,000 gap in the buildings and grounds expenses. That you could spend an extra $5,000 in buildings and grounds and still be within budget for 6 months.
Hmm.
So, so that's just a few things I just noted from I only had a little short time to look at this, but that's a few things I noticed. Yeah.
A question. You did mention in your little written report about buildings and grounds under budget, and you just mentioned that now. Is that just a line item in the budget, or is there a buildings and grounds fund, a designated fund that we're talking about?
Well, let's see.
It's a line item.
Yeah, it's a line item with a number of things under
Okay,
that line item. And let me see if I
okay.
can find out what was of interest underneath that line
No,
item.
I don't need that kind of interest since we've got to a long meeting. I just wondered whether it
Yeah,
was a fund or what, just a line item in a budget. Okay, thank you.
yeah, but basically it's about, several items underneath that one item right there. And so that means there's some leeway for doing some expenses there according to the budget anyway. and also the bank account and all.
All right. Thank you for that good report. We love good news like that. Nancy.
Can I add a quick note? So the amount that we did in fundraising this year is sitting at 14, but that does not include funds not received yet with regard to the art show. And I believe that I was told there's another 5,000 outstanding. So fundraising should come to about 19 when all is said and done.
Mm.
And we have the Valentine dance coming up. The Halloween dance, just for your information, collected over $1,000. So fun things are really fun and they raise money.
Very good.
Yeah, and just looking at the buildings and grounds in more detail, there's about a dozen different line items, and none of them are really way out of whack. They're all these things just add up in some way or other. But that's good news on the fundraising too, because a lot of the fundraising effort has been in the first 6 months, and so it's good that it's going to carry over to the next 6 months. Mm.
Well,
Um,
and along that line, there may be, well, there will be probably some more come in because four pretty upscale pieces of art have been deposited with the auction house in Seattle, and that auction will occur either the end of March or beginning of April, and we stand to gain some money from that, and we could gain
Mhm.
quite a bit of money depending on how things sell.
very good.
Mhm.
Tom, would you like to report on the usher training session?
Well, there isn't much to report. We had about 2/3 of the ushers that were able to make it there, and we spent about an hour reviewing both the kind of the peculiarities of the first service, which are a little different, obviously, than the second service. And there were questions asked, and we walked through some things and answered questions. And generally, I had, received favorable comments. So that was it. And we are looking at two relatively new ushers that have joined the team. And we, of course, would like some more, but we'll do the best we can.
What does that bring the total number of ushers to?
Oh, well, I'm going off the top of my head without looking at my list, but I think we're somewhere in the 12 to 14 range. Judy and Dick Gammon are kind of laying back because of course, of Judy having a broken leg, and so they're kind of off the beat for a while.
Okay, good.
And I have a question too for those of you who are more in tune with the church. Pledges coming in like this are looking good, but uh, do, those of you with more history, do you know, is this sort of typical by mid-year to have more pledges paid early, or do you think we're really just doing just fine?
I don't have any insight.
Yeah. But if any of you have any insight, I mean, uh, something must be working. Of course, another possibility is that with Trump in office, more people are willing to support alternatives. I think, and you is an alternative for some of that. Yeah. So that's a good possibility there too. Mhm.
Okay, I am not a member of the aesthetics team, but I'm just here to say, wow, what a great job on the art show. Just fabulous. And Dan, since you are on the aesthetics team and you are here, any comments for us on that project?
Well, I appreciate in the house all the sales that we made. I think those totaled in the area of 6,000 something. And we were kind of selling to the choir there, but we were very lucky to have some donations like from Donna Borden and in particular Sandra Horn. And if we really need to thank Sandra, for instance, on the paintings that they gave. The Don Borden one was in Atchison, and that's up over in the auction block for a minimum of $4,000. She recently, some of her work has recently sold between different ones between 10 and 20,000. I don't think we'll get that, but I'm hoping we get more than four. Anyway, I want to thank the team. It was Gene, Susan, Tyler Babcock, myself, and Diddens helped us for a bit, and we had, of course, a lot of you within the church, including Tom Mosier, who did a lot of the research on finding a site that would handle that auction. So thank all of you very much. The only problem we have is I don't have very more paintings of that quality to sell in another auction or sale.
Well, I got a piece myself that is big and it was a steal and I'm feeling a little guilty, but it looks great over my fireplace, so I'm enjoying it.
Great.
Let's see, Nancy. Designated and undesignated donations.
Okay, so this is regarding donations other than pledges. A designated donation occurs when someone makes a donation and specifies the fund to which they intend it be allocated. For example, Dale and I could donate money and request that it be directed toward a new refrigerator or building and grounds or fixing the floor. And this is in complete accordance with the bylaws and policies and procedures. However, the church does not accept restricted donations, and those are restricted donations are specific to a purpose or a fund, but with limitations beyond general intention. Meaning, if Dale and I were to state that we would only donate X amount of money to this specific fund or project, if the following restrictions are followed, and again, for instance, if Dale and I state we will only donate money if the refrigerator is purchased from our friend's appliance store, that donation would be or could be rejected if our friend's appliance store isn't the best choice. So no strings attached. Years ago, a family wanted to donate money to purchase and place a flagpole on the church's property. It was determined that the flagpole was not something we wanted on our property, so the money was not accepted. It is industry standard for nonprofits and churches to reject such donations. It sets us up for a massive financial liability if the restrictions are not followed exactly or cannot be followed exactly, or if the person setting the restrictions becomes unhappy with the process or the decision. It is far too subjective and can put us at risk for litigation and in turn threaten our nonprofit status. So if you want to donate money for that to go to building and grounds, you can, as long as you keep your fingers out of how to spend it. That's up to the team and the management team to determine that kind of thing. One thing Rebecca did say she would like us to look into with regard to donations, especially from an estate, would be to add to the bylaw that the money would go into endowment unless they have an unpaid pledge. And she'd like that to somehow be clarified in our bylaws. So that the first thing that would happen is an unpaid pledge would be paid. Then the rest would go wherever it's designated in the will, because they could say, I want this to go into the property management fund or whatever we call that thing. So hopefully that clarifies donated for a purpose versus strings attached. Tom?
That's really a good thing to hear, because that idea has been kicking around for well over a year to allow something like that to be done. The other question I have of in your kind of discussions and in the realm of what you just reported, if somebody wanted to make a donation and designate that it go to an established fund, like to enlarge the Memorial Garden Fund or to enlarge some other fund we have, would that be would that be okay if they just designate it to the fund?
Yes, but
Okay.
but it's, you have to put in Rosemary and you have to put in, you can't, no strings attached.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
it's up to the team to determine how to spend that.
If one wanted to donate something like I have made a proposal to donate some funds that would improve the landscaping aesthetics and make things easier for the buildings and grounds team to work. Do you think that would be too restrictive?
What you would need to say is that you would like to donate X amount of money to building and grounds, and then let the building and grounds take it from there.
I think it wouldn't be inappropriate to voice your wishes. Like it would be my wish that this money might be used for, maintenance issues or whatever. But then knowing that once it's been donated, it's out of your control, basically. You've given it to the church.
I'd like to make a comment too. In terms of the budget we have, there are these major categories in the budget. Like there's the like we've been talking about buildings and grounds, but there's administration, membership, um, social justice, music, worship. It might be a good idea to say that if a donation is made for a particular general purpose, that it come under one of those major parts of the budget, not a sub. My point is, it shouldn't be, uh, if it's payroll or something, but it should not be, I think, one of the minor categories. It should be like, say, ministerial services. That's a definite large category in the budget, and I think it would be inappropriate then to put something at a level that's below that particular thing. I'm not sure what the exact term for it, but in terms of major budget categories here.
Well, I would volunteer to try to work on this bylaw thing, but I'd like to have another person.
Can I get in here? Because I've got my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's on the bylaw thing. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Appreciate it. So it's on the same subject. So I have a real concern about creating a bylaw that would bypass the wishes of a designated gift. We already have a bylaw that says distinguishes between what we do with designated and undesignated gifts. If it is undesignated, it goes to the endowment.
Right.
Over 1,000, it goes to the endowment. That's what it says about undesignated.
Mhm.
If it's designated, we have to either accept it and do what it is designated for, or not. If somebody wills $50,000 to go into our endowment fund, and they have not paid 10,000 of their pledge, it still all needs to go into the endowment fund.
Right.
Okay. If we get 50,000 from somebody and it is undesignated and they have not paid 10,000 of their fund, 10,000 would go into paying their pledge, and the other 40 would go into the endowment fund according to our bylaws as they are right now, right? Because when somebody sends a monthly check to the church, we don't call and ask them, is this for your pledge? We apply it to their pledge because that's what they did. They pledged we would get amounts. So if somebody gives us a $50,000 and they have an amount that has not been paid or filled before their death, we would compensate for that so long as it is not designated for something else. But if we can't create a bylaw that says we have a bylaw that is going to bypass the designated wishes of people who have contributed money to us for a specific fund. We either have to accept it because it is acceptable, or we would have to reject it because it's not a flagpole that it's a flagpole that we don't want. Does that make sense?
Well,
But what Rebecca was suggesting is that part of our bylaw be, and she just suggested I bring this, that part of the bylaw be that before the rest of the money would go to endowment, that any unpaid pledge would be taken out. That's what she was suggesting.
But if it's what I'm saying, if it's designated, it's not right to do that. If it's undesignated, it's already covered.
Okay.
If it's undesignated, of course it's going to go to their pledge.
Mm-hmm.
there's what I wanted to add was in the Article 3 of Finance, there's Section 7, which deals with an undesignated gift, and that's kind of what you described. But Section 8 deals with designated gifts and describes a process which we have used a couple of times in the last few years, which I could identify, but I don't want to take the time unless somebody wants me to identify those projects. It's supposed to go to the operations team and a designated gift, and then the operations team is supposed to send it out to another team that has expertise in that area, and wait for a recommendation from them, and then decide what to do. And there's a process all laid out, and the bottom line end of the whole thing is that the board could get involved applying the criteria that are in the policy and procedures manual for how to judge whether or not to accept a designated gift. So we've kind of got a process. We have used it at least twice in about the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm saying I don't really know what the confusion is or what we need to do differently, unless we just want to clarify language so that it's clear, what we're doing. But to me, it seems very clear. There's a difference between designated and undesignated. If it's designated, it goes through a process to see if it's acceptable. If it's undesignated, and it's over $1,000, it's going to go to our endowment. Unless there's an amount that somebody owes to the church, then we would consider that partial payment because it's undesignated and they had made a pledge. I mean, it makes sense to me. That's the way we've operated, pretty much with it since I've been here anyway.
Okay.
Oh, Cindy, your mic is muted.
Thank you. My recollection is that we wrestled with this earlier, maybe about a year ago, and discovered that there was less of a problem than we had imagined. And as you said, Tom, I think 2 occasions where it was really something that required any decision making.
Yeah, and they were physical objects that were donated to the church.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I have a question. Are there guidelines for people who might want to leave something that's designated but don't want to, that we could, guidelines that for say someone has a designated gift, but we don't want them to be overly specific. Are there guidelines that would encourage them to, designate it to buildings and grounds or music or something, but not to get too specific? So to give the church some leeway.
I don't think we have them written, but we would just tell them, these are our rules. If it's that specific, we're going to have to go through the process and get back with you.
Yeah, I mean, just guidelines that might be very useful. Explain the difficulties that might arise with overly specific designations.
I mean, it's happened twice in 45 years, as they say. So I don't think
we'll
forget where those guidelines are by the time we need to use them again.
Right.
Okay. Let's move on to Emergency Procedures Manual, particularly security, from Justin.
Okay, hi. I have looked at the existing manual, which was pretty well written, pretty well thought out. There's a couple of things which are clearly out of date, and a couple of areas which need to be improved. I've already made a list of those improvements and what page they're on, and what part I think needs to be changed. It may want we may want somebody else to look at it and make sure they're in agreement with me. So I'm open to how we can do that, and then simply take it to Rebecca to type up. These are not lengthy changes.
Well, do you know how, somebody else could answer, maybe you, Todd, have the background. How did the other emergency procedures manual get adopted? Was it a board, or maybe you know, Justin, or was it an ops team? Since it kind of tends to deal with I would consider procedures that might be in the realm of the ops team. Any help on
Yeah,
who
my recollection it was that it was exactly that, Tom. The team that was putting it together put it together, and then the ops team approved it as the policy, operations policy.
I would be happy to submit my suggestions to the ops team so they can see it. They would need to see the original manual and the suggestions which I have suggested. Then I would also like to make a further suggestion that we establish a security team, or we can make it part of the ops team. There are several security updates, in my opinion, which are needed. That most of them are very simple and will not cost much money or very complicated to proceed with. And I have made a list of those. I can give you some brief samples if anybody wants those.
Justin, it sounds to me like maybe it makes most sense for this to go to the ops team, and then if they feel the need to spin it off into a separate committee or work group, it could go from there. I don't know. Others, what do the rest of you think?
I think that's right, Cindy, because if it's something the board were to adopt, it gets fairly complicated. Then you have to do a lot of "I shall not" section. So you could do a broad policy around security, right? That the operations team shall not fail to have a working safety policy or guidelines in place, or something like that. From the perspective of the board. But I don't think you'd want to adopt an entire policy book.
Right, and Rebecca mentioned that the emergency procedures document or manual will be updated, so it's part of what they're working on.
I'd be happy to meet with the ops team. That's quite acceptable to me. But I just want to make sure when I meet with them that they see what the existing one is, then look at my proposals, and then make sure they are in accordance with those with my ideas.
Yeah, Justin, if you would email Rebecca when you get a chance to ask to get on, the slate whenever you feel like you can.
Okay.
But send that the same report you have, just so, or the same policy you have, just so everyone knows they're on the same page. That would be great.
Okay, you want me to send to all the board members and to Rebecca?
Yeah, that's sure. I mean, certainly to Rebecca to ask to get on the operations team meeting, but if the board's interested in seeing it, I think that's.
Yeah, they're more than welcome to look at it.
Well, and just to add to this from the usher standpoint, and I've talked with Todd about this, the last two sections of the usher's instructions have to do with evacuation of the building. Like under fire, if the fire alarm goes off, how do we evacuate? And that's relatively simple and has a designated place we're all supposed to assemble after we exit the building, including the kids out of the RE. But then the last section is a threat, and how to respond to a threat, either having gotten into the sanctuary during a service or being outside of our locked doors and in the foyer. And that's what is changed. We don't have an outdoor security team to forewarn us of any hazard like that last one. So I'm hoping that you and the ops team could deal with that. And I'm perfectly willing to change the instructions for ushers to suit whatever you all come up with for that kind of a situation, an actual threat.
Yeah, I have looked into that, and I do have some suggestions. Some of them
Okay,
do require more thought, however.
okay,
Locking the outside doors is both a blessing and a curse.
yeah, really.
I'm well aware of both sides of that coin, and
Thank you.
I would like to have other people agree with me on that or disagree with me on that, but yeah, that needs to be discussed. Also, there's things like shutting down the electrical power in certain events, which is also a blessing and a threat. Uh, it could be a quite blessing to have it shut down. It could be quite a curse if the fire department runs in, the place is dark, they don't know where to go, blah blah blah. So there's a couple of things I would like further discussion on.
Okay, thank you. Nancy, strategic plan, next steps.
Luba, Tom, and I met and talked about how the plan was put together in 2017. And there was a committee. Todd was on it, and then the board president and one other member, I believe, possibly. Dan, were you on the board at that time?
Yes, I was. Well, I think I was at that time, but I was very much involved with the strategic plan,
Yeah. And
particularly
then
particularly Todd and I were main members that are involved in putting that together. Yeah.
so it was Todd and then Dave Guard, who was the board president at that time, were co-chairs. And then there were three congregants, and possibly then, Dan, if you were on the board at that time, you would make a third board member. So here is the question, though. We will not make any deadlines with regard to budget, or unless we do one of two things. I need to know if we want to start the strategic plan process while Todd is on sabbatical in February, or if we wait and do a few things in February and then really start in March. So Todd, what are your feelings on that?
Yeah, I think you should wait. And I appreciate you asking. I prefer that. I don't think that you need to worry too much about the next budget cycle, if that's what you were suggesting. I mean, the budget's going to be what it's going to be, right? So the board goes through a wonderful exercise every year saying, here's our priorities. By the way, I think your priorities this year were just perfect. Don't cut spending and raise money, raise revenue, right? So it's kind of a recognition of where we're at. So we'll do the best we can. I don't think you'll be able to integrate much from a strategic plan into the budget coming up anyway. So thinking longer term, it's not going to hurt us to hold off a few weeks.
Dan?
Yeah, just a comment that there are several sequences in putting that plan together. You can't just put it together all at once. The normal process, or at least what we did, was you send out and request information from each of the teams. So that is happening before before you really can put together a strategic plan, because until you do that, you don't really know what the church wants. And as Todd will probably remember too, then we had a very carefully drafted trying to get information from the congregation as a whole. It has to be done very carefully because you need to get an overall feeling, and you don't want to have a whole bunch of specifics coming in that you're going to have problem if you have to refuse somebody's idea, it's cornball. So the best way is, as we said, the sequencing, asking the teams and get reports back. When you collect all that data, then you can sit down and really decide what your strategic plan will be. Todd may have comments on that.
Well, Tom has his hand up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, with regard to February, and go add on to what Dan just said. We have a questionnaire. Basically, it was in two different forms, but it's the same basic questionnaire that was used to go to the teams. Now, one of the questions is that I have as part of this little group is, do we want to be asking similar or same questions of the staff? Because they have perspectives that would be a little different than teams. So that's one question. And then second of all, if we do have a questionnaire, whether it's to teams only or staff and teams, can we do that in February, Todd, while you're on sabbatical? Because it would be asking the questions, and then by the time you got back, we would have some results in the month of March.
I mean, I don't think surveys are going to hurt by any time. So sure, that if you have time to do that.
Any comments about expanding it from teams to staff?
I like including staff. I would include them separately,
Okay.
but I think somehow getting thoughts from staff about what is needed would be important.
Okay. Well, I think, would you agree, Nancy and Luba, that we could do something here in February and get a questionnaire out, and then we'd maybe have results come back in March?
I
we
would
can
really
try.
like to have a team formed and not just be 3 board members.
Yeah, somebody else would be helpful.
Yeah,
So-
that's really important, I think, for your process is to make sure you have a team that is large and isn't narrowed on a few voices, and that broadens out beyond the board for sure. We've done that. I think this will be the 4th strategic plan since I've been here, and we've had that team in place every time, some sort of team like that.
Is there a way that we could get a team formed before the end of the week?
Or maybe that's what you do in February,
Yes.
Again, we've been working without a strategic plan for a while, so I don't think rushing is as necessary as doing following the steps that Dan outlined, being intentional.
Are you suggesting, Todd and the others, that we need to have more than just the 3 of us put out a questionnaire to the team, but using basically the same questionnaire that was used before, that we need to have a broader team than just three board members to formulate a questionnaire and get it out?
I mean, I don't know. I can't remember the questionnaire. I would say that we're living in different times without seeing the questionnaire. It's always good to have different heads come together when you're forming surveys, people from different perspectives. So in that sense, it would be healthier to do it that way. It would be more expeditious to go with what you have. But the question is, what will you get the results you want in March?
Okay. Yeah, there was kind of open-ended questions, 3 or 4 open-ended questions about what do you think could be done better? What would you like the future to see? I was trying to scramble here to find it. Maybe Nancy couldn't find it, but it was pretty basic. If you can jump in there, go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah. What do we aspire, what or who do we aspire to be over the next 5 years? What are your team's goals or aspirations? That kind of question. And one of the other questions that I saw was raised, these are still goals that are not accomplished that you had hoped to accomplish during the last strategic plan. Is this still a priority goal of your teams? That kind of question was raised.
Oh,
So-
and the very last question was in the broader sense, comment on your something to do with your perspective or outlook for the entire church and not just your team. I think that was the last question.
I think brief and open-ended is going to be more likely to get usable responses rather than getting too far into the weeds or creating a survey that is too long and detailed and discourages people from even stepping up to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were only 4 questions that
Yeah.
of course, see, I have all of this, but do I have the survey? No.
So I want to name an assumption I have here just to make sure we're on the same page.
Okay.
That this questionnaire, and it's being referred to as going to the teams, is one form of questioning, correct? There'd be
Correct.
surveys to the congregation,
Correct.
surveys to the staff potentially, right? Okay.
So the first step that we did was surveying the teams, and then there were 3 or 4 meetings where congregants were invited to come and share their thoughts. And then there was a whole congregation opportunity to choose their top priorities as well. So it's not just going to the team or going to the staff. There are more conversations to be had.
Yeah. And that's going to be a different show because before pre-COVID, we all could get together for the most part. We all got together in the sanctuary, and now we're going to have to deal with some in the sanctuary, and some we're going to have to reach by some other means, and that'll be part of the decision-making process as to how to involve people who don't or can't come to a church meeting physically together. I'd hope we could go ahead with a questionnaire to the teams and not go to anybody else, and then have in March expand the team to include some non-board people as to like you did in the past. And Jim Lee, I don't even remember Jim Lee because I was, not here in the winters, but he was a centerpiece.
He did dynamic facilitation, but we have wonderful alliance members who can conduct those kinds of meetings and said they would be willing.
Oh,
So
good.
they could facilitate. So we have other options.
Yeah.
Sue?
Can't hear you, Sue.
Sue, you need to.
It looks like your mic is open, Sue, but we still can't hear you.
Okay, I'll come back.
Oh,
Nope.
there you are. There you are.
That's good.
Oh,
That's good.
I, as a congregant, would like 2 congregants to be on this team, so that would give you 5. And I would like to see it from the very beginning of when you form the questionnaire, because I just think more brains and viewpoints can be helpful. That's all.
Do I hear a volunteer?
Yes, I heard volunteering.
Are you
Oh,
volunteering?
am I volunteering? Suddenly I can't hear you. So what am I volunteering to be on the strategic plan team throughout the whole process? Is that what it would be?
Sounds great.
Yes, I would do that.
Okay.
Great.
We need to find one more.
One more person
Well,
volunteering.
I'd like a total of 3 congregants at least, quite frankly.
Okay.
That would bring the team counting Todd up to 7. 7's a good number.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Perhaps you could bring rather than in a board meeting, bring it up in on a Sunday during announcements or something. We're looking for 3 volunteers or two, whatever it is at this point, from the congregation to serve on our strategic planning committee.
And I would especially appreciate someone who's a parent.
Mhm.
A parent about what?
With
A-
kids, with
A
kids.
parent.
Mom and dad.
A parent or someone newer to the church that maybe some of their needs aren't being met and they would have some ideas.
Yes.
Okay, we can, if you think of somebody,
I've got it already. I got one.
who is that, Tom?
Um, the new person, Kirsten Grant, Kirsten, I'm not sure how she pronounces her first name.
Kirsten.
Kirsten, and she's been involved with UU churches over in the Seattle area also. So, and she's real enthusiastic.
And I would be willing to reach out to Stephanie and ask if she has anyone in mind that is a parent of kids in RE. I really think that would be valuable.
Right.
Nancy, I met a new couple last Sunday, Martin and Michelle. Really nice, bright couple with kids, very new, but they might be just the sort to jump in.
How about my internet is unstable. Tom, do you want to reach out
There's a
to
joke in there somewhere too, but
Yes. Tom, do you want to reach out to Kirsten? And Cindy, do you
Well-
want to reach out to that parent?
Yeah, I'll try and get a hold of them.
And then we'd be good to go.
And I'll get back to you when I reach out to her. I know how to contact her.
Okay. And I wanted to let you know, I should have said this during the financial report. I did not reach out to Darrell yet to ask if he would consider being the treasurer because Rebecca wanted to see how he functions with numbers first before we ask him.
Mhm.
So we would ask him anyway, starting next July 1st.
And that would be an opportunity to have a bylaw that would allow the board to appoint an ex officio treasurer who would also have to be a board member, so that we would need to mess around with the bylaws a little bit. It'd be a non-voting trustee and treasurer, but that would satisfy the state law of having a board member as a treasurer. So I'll put that on my list of things.
Good.
He doesn't have to be a trustee.
Yes, it does. Because the state law says that the treasurer has to be a trustee. That's why that's why poor Dick has been in the position he's been in.
but it can be an ex officio. Nice thing
Yeah.
about an ex officio is you can keep them on as long as they're willing.
True, but they still need to be appointed to be a trustee, and we need a bylaw to enable ourselves to do that. An ex officio, non-voting trustee treasurer.
Would he need to be elected then?
No, appointed.
Okay, okay,
Yep.
thank
But yeah, we've explored that before, and
you. I'm good.
it's doable.
Okay, sounds good. On to budget priorities, or are we going to save that for a while until after we talk strategic plan?
We already decided that, and it was cut expenses when possible and raise more money.
Mhm.
Easy peasy. Major capital improvements funding. Tom, I think this is yours.
Yeah, um,
By the way, any full sheets or partial sheets or what?
have I got the floor? Yeah.
Yes.
Over the last
Well, I'm
just
talking
several
about-
months, actually, I have,
I think it's the full sheets, but
boy, I can't talk over that. Is that you, Dan? Can you shut off your mic? No. Okay, over the last few months, I have been talking with some people and trying to figure out if we are faced with it's not if, it's when we're faced with a major capital expenditure, what are our funding options? And what I came up with was capital fund drive as an option. If the capital fund drive wouldn't cover whatever the expense was, then a loan. And I talked to a credit union. 6.2% was the figure that I came up with from that person that would be reasonable to expect, kind of like a home equity loan, where we have, the church and the property would be the collateral. And then another suggestion that came up was what we did to finance the church, the purchase of the church that we've got now, the construction and the property, which was to sell bonds to ourselves. And those bonds I participated, they were short term, like 6 months up to 15 or 16 years long. And we had to hire a consultant to set that up, someone from Olympia. And then we were engaged in, of course, having to set up a repayment program that went on for a decade and a half. And then we have to issue 1099 forms, even, because of interest being paid back to people. And the other option that came up was, what if the possibility of tapping into the endowment fund under certain conditions or restrictions? And as you know from other things I've sent out, I sent out kind of an analysis of what the options would be if we had $100,000 project sometime in the future, and using a complete loan for 100,000. You had the figures for that at 6.2% interest, how it would affect our, the budget where we'd have to pay back on that loan every year, depending on whether it was a 10-year or a 15-year loan. And then I did another $100,000 when we would raise 50,000 in a capital fund drive and get a loan for 50,000. And then what that would be impact on the budget. And then I did another exercise that was, what if we had one third, and one third of 33,000 as a capital fund drive and 33,000 as a loan, and 33,000 out of the $1 million plus or minus endowment fund. And then another one, which was, what if it was half and half? If we did a $50,000 capital fund drive and didn't want to do a loan, and took $50,000 out of the capital fund or out of the endowment fund. And so I was trying to present examples of what would be the impact, including even at the end, we would lose some money out of the endowment fund. If you took 50,000 out of $1 million fund, it would be $950,000, and then 4% of that, or 4.5%, as we usually do. That would be a little bit less that would go into the budget as income, et cetera, et cetera. And to do that, I actually made a proposal, which I would like us to not vote on it this time, but study the concept, maybe discuss it a little, and then in the February meeting, actually vote on whether the board would like to make that go to the congregation, because it would make the congregation would have to decide whether or not to open up that door. But the concept that I had in mind was that no more money could come out of the endowment fund than whatever the capital fund raised. So if it was 35,000, then no more than 35,000 could come out of the endowment fund. And anything over, I think, 20% of our budget expenditure, like if it was for replacing the furnaces in the top part of the RE area, there are 3 residential furnaces up there, and they are the original ones, as far as I can determine. Or roofing, any roofing project that involves where the solar panels are, they have to come off. I got an estimate for that for $15,000, plus an add-on of 3% per year to take those off, stack them up, put them back on. So whatever the project might be, whether it's 1 year from now or 5 years from now, the concept was that we would not seek any more from the endowment fund than what a capital fund would raise, the incentive being raise as much as you can. And then we wouldn't even be able to do that until the congregation voted, 60% of the congregation voted, those that are present at a meeting and voting would need a 60% approval to take any money out of the endowment fund, and then it could be no more than whatever was raised in a capital fund drive. So I'm just trying to present as many options and get them in place so that when we need it, we don't have to scramble to do something like that if we can't raise enough funds by capital fund drives or by whatever the loan obligations would be. So I want us to think about, because I'm a long-term thinker, long-range planning is my career. So I wanted us to think about getting as many options available for funding a major project as possible. So that's kind of the conversation. And I did present you with a suggested bylaw change. The board doesn't necessarily have to support the bylaw change. It would just have to say the congregation should decide this and then have it go on to the annual meeting agenda in, at our June meeting, with or without any support from the board other than to place it on the agenda. So that's the start of a conversation, however long we want to go into it.
Todd, you have your
Thank
hand
you.
up.
Yeah. First of all, I would ask that the board not vote on anything on this in February, because this is more important to me than the strategic planning issue is.
Oh, okay.
So please don't do that. I would actually prefer the board not vote on it at all. I wouldn't want the board to even vote to support this going before the congregation for a vote. That's pretty much coming from the board. And it is the only, you came up with several options, Tom, but it's the only option that is requiring a bylaw change, and that is to the endowment fund. So
Right.
I'm against changing the endowment fund. I want to go into a little bit of quick history on the endowment fund. When I came, the endowment fund had 190,000 in it. And the endowment team wanted to help grow, wanted me to help them help grow it. And I said, look, endowment funds are big problems for congregations. And even at that small amount, anytime we asked people for more money, we would have some people come and say, why are you asking us for money? You've got 190,000 in the bank, right? So, and they're right. If the money is not working for the congregation or for the organization, the endowment's not doing what it's supposed to do. But the endowment fund, and I agreed with me that we would not give anything to the congregation from the endowment fund until it reached at least $500,000, and it would be a significant amount. Okay? And we thought, well, that'll never happen, but it happened within just a few years because there were a lot of people who were alive in this church who gave money to it for this purpose, just as those who've given it to us in their wills have given it to us for this purpose, so that the endowment can do what an endowment fund does, and that is to support the institution while never touching the fund itself, right? Now, the more this grows, the more it is going to support us. The first strategic plan we had was to reduce our pledge dependency. You remember this, Dan?
That's
To
right.
reduce our dependency upon pledges, which was over 90% at that time, right? We had very little income coming from anything else. We saw the endowment fund as a mechanism for achieving that. Now, I have some numbers here, right? So the first payment that came from the endowment fund, it reached 500,000, $500,000 in 2017. In 2018, we got 17,000 under the plan, under the system we have right now. 17,000 was far more than our second greatest fundraiser outside of pledges, which at the time was the community auction. Okay, so this immediately more than doubled what we were bringing in outside of pledges the first year. Okay, the next year it was just a little bit less, 15,000. Then it jumped to 26, and then to 2750. Okay, now during the first 4 distributions, it was 85,000 total in 4 years. 85,000 that went into our budget over a 4-year period. Okay. During the last 4 years, and eight distributions now, it was 139.8. So basically 140,000 in the last 4 years, because it keeps growing. Okay, that's 215,800 over the past 8 years that have gone into our budget. If we start reducing the value of that endowment, that means less to our bottom line over a period of time in which you can see the number is growing. I mean, getting 37,000 or 39,000 last year is a significant contribution to our budget, and that's what this is for. So I'm all with Tom on some of the other plans. Now, one, we don't have a crisis. I think it's important to say that. We're talking about planning for a crisis that doesn't exist yet. So I think some of the other strategies that Tom has are great, but please do not touch the budget, this or touch the endowment. The endowment is working for us. It's only going to work better and better and better for us if we continue to let it grow. You got to notice, a few weeks ago that it was 1,033,000. Now it's over 1,050,000 already in just a few weeks. So we've got to let this thing work for us and not work against it, or we're going to find our bottom line being reduced over the years, not increased. And I think folks will give. It may be that we have to, compensate with a small business loan to compensate for what the congregation can't come up with if necessary. My opinion on the roof is that the roof is going to outlast us all. We've had repairs to the roof. We've repaired the flat part. We've had some shingles replaced that blew off in a windstorm. Somebody, I think it was Sue the other day, said, well, that roof is 30 years old. I said, I'm 60 years old and I'm not made out of asphalt. So, it's probably going to outlast me. And if it doesn't, it'll be because of a catastrophic windstorm or something. And our insurance is going to cover that. So I think that, when we start talking about these potential crises, there's always a way for us to make it work. This church has proven to be very generous when those things happen. But I would strongly advise against doing anything to the endowment fund as far as bylaws go, except unless it is to create a bylaw that secures in perpetuity what we are doing now. Aaron.
Yes, this should be for Sue Sterretts to report, but the endowment team had a meeting yesterday and voted on this. Dick and I are not voting members now, but we were present at the meeting as former engaged people. So Susan can report on the outcome of that discussion and vote.
Oh, thank you, Karen. We had a lengthy discussion about this, and I'll keep it short. The team is not in favor of having funds taken from it. And we talked about alternatives and things. We won't know until mid-February what percentage we'll be giving. We've been giving, I think this last year was 4.52 or something like that percent, which came out to about 39,000, which Todd mentioned. And so we'll know in mid-February when we have our meeting, after we receive our information from the Seattle Foundation, we'll decide what percentage. Normally, we do not go down. These are good times, so maybe we can go up a bit. But and we talked of other options as far as, say, just in theoretically, that we give 5%. Maybe we might say, put a percentage of that into that deferred maintenance fund. I don't even know if we can do that. We can certainly suggest it, but we understand Tom's thinking, and it's wise to be thinking down the road, but I think there are other options. I think the team thinks there's other options.
And I'm pretty sure, given the methodology that we use to calculate, because what we do, we don't just say, here's a $1.05 million, 4.5% of that. What we do is calculate 13 rolling quarters of the endowment's quarterly, earnings, and then we average that. And if we do that, just theoretically looking at the numbers right now, it looks like we can give at least over $40,000 this year. We have 38,000 last year, at least 40,000 to the operating budget.
And that's the point I forgot to make, is that, with this, as this keeps going up, right? I mean, it was 85,000 the first 4 years. It's 140,000 the next 4 years. And if you're going from 104 from I should say 39,000 to over 40 next year, I mean, we're looking at in the next 4 years having substantially more than the $55,000 gain we had during the past 4 years, right? So we could very well see 100,000. So if we're getting, 200,000, 300,000 out of this every 4 years, that is not something to fool with.
Dan.
Couple of comments. One, I should mention that our meeting yesterday was unanimous that we do not want to have the bylaws changed on this. And it would take a bylaw change to do some of the things that Tom is recommending. The reason for that is that we worked very hard as we pulled our money out of national to try and set this up so that in the future there would not be periods of time or political things within the church that would all of a sudden change the whole direction that we've had as we built this up. So that we feel pretty strongly about making a bylaw change. The next comment would be that what Tom is concerned about, and I've been concerned about, and the boards have been concerned about, is our deferred maintenance plan that we've had for years. It's built up a little bit, and then it gets rated, and so on. So part of the discussion yesterday was about a way to maybe handle this a little different, and another option that we can add to Tom's. For instance, if we were able to, as an endowment team, be able to put a certain amount of funding, and this is just talking right now, into a deferred maintenance program every year, a portion in there, and then have the board put some kind of restriction on that account so it can't be rated. And I'm not quite sure how to do that, but if that was possible, so that maybe if we have a bylaw change, that would be the kind of bylaw change, is to protect that deferred maintenance fund. Then I think, and I'm speaking for myself, but maybe the whole endowment would agree, that we would not have so much problem putting some money into that account, knowing that it will go toward the things that Tom wants, which is enough money there to handle these kind of maintenance issues in the future that may come up. And that could build up just like we've built up our endowment fund a bit every year. In a few years, that could mount quite a bit as long as it's protected. Thoughts?
Yeah, so the agreement was that the endowment funds would go, or the benefit of it would go to the budget, the general budget, based upon our needs. I would differ with you in the language of it being rated. It's being used.
Yeah.
It's being used to
Oh,
fix
well,
things
yeah, I
around
know
the
that.
building. Well, I mean, it's not going away. It's being used. It's actually repairing. We have a new heating system in the sanctuary
I
over the
know.
past years because of that fund. There are so many big projects that we've had to work on that we use that funding for. So just because it's not built up to a massive amount for a catastrophic thing, we do put money into it regularly, and so far it hasn't run out. We've been able to use it and continue to build it up. It would always be great to build it up, but the budget situation. There's no way we can put money in one thing without robbing it from another.
Yeah,
So
I
to create
think
a
that's,
bylaw that ties the hands of the operations of the church when we have to figure out how we're going to make things happen, I think would also be a mistake.
Yeah.
That was just a
yeah,
thought.
I wanted to say on that too, is that I think the last few years, the problem has simply been that the budget's been so tight that there hasn't been any room in the budget to fund that fund you're talking about. The fund is still there, but it's there's not much in it compared to what should be in there, but it's just because the budget hasn't been able to fund it.
Right.
But as the budget situation improves, it would seem to me at a certain point, if this improvement continues in terms of the church priorities, putting part of the budget into that fund should be become one of the priorities. That'd be one way to handle this. He's talking about reducing expenses, increasing funds, fundraising, and one of the concept, one of the purposes of that was to keep this fund that we have already up to par.
Back to Tom.
Okay, a couple of things. Now, you could help me out here, Dick, and you, Todd. If I'm recalling things right, the fund, the capital reserve fund is expenditures as necessary are taken out of it, decided by the operations team as to what qualifies. And if I'm recalling right, that Rebecca has said that at the end of the year, if we show an excess of income over expenditures in the annual budget, that excess goes into the capital reserve fund. So I think there's some money that goes in, but it's not a budgeted line item. It just happens to be what's left over. Is that?
That sounds familiar to me. And again,
Okay.
what's happened the last couple of years, there hasn't been that excess to put into it. And
Okay.
and that's been the problem. Usually in the past,
Okay.
there's been some excess, or like if the expenditures come out below normal, you might have,
Yeah.
$20,000 you could put it, that will go into that fund.
Okay.
I mean, no one's raiding the fund. It's just not being built up. And
Yeah. Yeah. Right, right. And okay, then the other part of this thing that I want us to think about is this, to me, and this kind of gets into almost a matter of democracy versus autocracy, is this is something that I think the congregation should decide, and that would be what the bylaw would provide for if it gets there. And as you know, it can get there if just 10 members bring a proposal to the board. The board has some limitations on what they can do to tinker with it, but if it gets there and they tinker with it, it still has to go to the congregation. Hopefully, we won't get to that point. But the other point is, it isn't a universal, absolute, agreed thing that endowment funds are only to provide income. That certainly is the principal purpose, and even the bylaw amendment that I said would be that the principal purpose would be, but an exception could be made under certain circumstances. And when I did the numbers of trying to figure out if we had $43,000 that would come from a 4.3% interest out of $1 million. And if we took out $34,000, there would only be a very slight reduction in the amount that would go in the next year that would go to the church. Like the matter, instead of it being $43,000, it would be 41,581. Or if we did a slightly different kind of a thing, it could be
Well, I'd
maybe,
like to call the question.
maybe a little
I'd
bit
like,
more maybe a little bit more than that. So we're talking about possibly using this, maybe not. And if so, it would be a very small amount. And I can't imagine it happening more than once every 8 or 9 or 10 years. So
I'd like to call the question because we've already had report from the endowment team.
there isn't a
Uh,
question, Todd. There's no motion on the floor.
Well, I know, but you're bringing it back up
Well,
in
sure
the
I am.
same level of detail that we've already heard.
Well, you haven't
And
heard my
I just
response.
wonder if we want to hear it, if we want to hear it again.
Okay, I gave you some new information, and I'm completely okay with letting the discussion go and letting it pass from February meeting to the March meeting and having a vote. And
I mean, not having a vote, we could vote on it right now. Do we need to vote on this?
I, I don't
What
think, well,
what is the motion? Why would we
there
have a
isn't,
vote?
there isn't a motion.
So
I want people to think about it.
what would we be agree to voting on in March?
Yeah.
Tom,
Well, people will have a chance to think about it and contemplate, and there may be some discussion that would come from other people. It's a public meeting, maybe other members of the church would want to chip in to their board members.
Tom, please let me make a comment, would you please?
Yeah.
Part of the discussion yesterday was the impact that this could cause within the church. We've had enough disruptions in the past. We have things going pretty well. We don't need to have an issue where we have two sides in the church arguing. And I can really see that coming up if you bring this to the congregation. I think it's unnecessary. I think that it can be handled by the board, and I really hate to see us and them going on in the church in the future here.
And then I would back that up. I would say that it's always recognized that the endowment is there in case of a real crisis or emergency. And I think just leave it at that. You know, if there's a real crisis, people will, and there's no other options, people will say, well, it's a crisis, and they'll be willing to dig into the endowment, but it's not likely that's going to happen anytime soon. I think we just leave it as a crisis thing that hopefully will never happen. But if it does, I think people will recognize that it won't be an issue.
But it still would take a bylaw, Dick. It would take a bylaw change to create an ability to tap into that.
Well, no, I don't think so.
Yes, it would.
Karen has her hand up.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just strongly urge you not to go forward with this. And to remind you that it was either 1 or 2 years ago, we already changed our bylaw about the endowment team to strengthen the way it has worked for decades and decades, which is that we have one role, which is to calculate a distribution to the church's operating budget every year. The rest of this is democracy in the church. The board and Rebecca and congregants all have a say in our priorities for that year. But we have one single goal, and I just say, don't mess with it.
Okay, I think that will conclude our discussion of this topic. And
We'd just like some clarity that we're not planning on bringing this back up in March as a board item.
I can propose a motion if it's on the agenda, and if I'm denied it being on the agenda, I have to consider whether or not I should be on this board. This is a democracy. It's not a theocracy. It's not an autocracy.
I'm not understanding the democratic question here, but I'm just saying there's been discussion. It seems agreed not to move forward with this, and you're going to move forward with it anyway. So that to me is, could be questionable disrespect for democracy. But anyway, we don't need to get into that. Are we going to discuss this again in March? Is that what we're doing, postponing this to give the same answer again, to have the same discussion, or can we let this go?
I'm going to make sure that's discussed in March. Actually, we haven't heard from all the board members, so we haven't had a thorough discussion.
I would not vote for it, Tom. I think we need to leave the endowment alone. And if this comes to fruition at some point in time, then we can revisit it. But no, let's just leave it alone. That's my point of view.
my preference would be the distribution from the endowment that goes to the budget to find some way to partition a bit of it or surplus at the end of the year, something like that, to go towards a dedicated capital improvements fund.
Yeah, I agree with Cindy.
So I have a question. So what Cindy just said, you would like some portion of it to go to the capital, to the fund, maintenance fund. So while I'm sitting here thinking, say we give 5%, that comes off that 1% or whatever we would decide to put in that fund would come off of that 5%. So our operating budget donation or contribution would go down.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
maybe somebody will have their salary cut or their income cut
yeah.
because of a roof that doesn't need to be repaired.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why now it's a
Yeah.
situation, if there's a surplus of income at the end of the year, that could be put into this fund. And also, this is the existing fund here is just a maintenance kind of fund. It's not like a capital fund.
Yeah.
A capital fund would be totally separate.
No, it was intended to be a capital reserve fund. I was involved with the committee in 2002 that started this whole process, and it was definitely a capital reserve fund with an annual amount to be donated based on a 30-year plan and a spreadsheet that Don Willingham prepared. Very few people remember what it was actually a capital reserve fund for the purpose of financing all the projected improvements, furnace failures, hot water tank failures, roof failures, window failures. It was all planned out for a 30-year program. The only problem was we couldn't underwrite it the way it should have been.
Yeah, we had every year when the budget came up, we had no money to put into it. It's a small amount.
Yep.
So it was unworkable. It was a brilliant plan, but it was unworkable. And that's what happens when we tie our hands. And I'd rather leave it to the endowment team to figure out, the distribution as the bylaws say. But anyway, I mean, again, we can go on and discuss this. I'm not even sure if it's the board's place to determine that. It would require a bylaw to bylaw change to say, you have to put a certain percentage in.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I certainly appreciate the concern for the future and being prepared for the unprepared. But man, dealing with this budget for 15 years every year, it's never enough, guys. It's never enough. We have to juggle every year. What's the priorities? What are we gonna do? What's not gonna get paid? Who's not gonna get paid?
Yeah.
Right? Nobody said, "Hey, let's rob the endowment so we can keep Todd at full time." Not that I would have let anyone by any means, but what are the priorities here?
I think we could make a recommendation, if I'm not mistaken, where we would just say to Rebecca, if it's possible, if there is excess, can we look at putting money, not telling how much, not saying all of it, into the building and grounds discretionary fund repair, whatever it is called, as a priority, but not tying anyone's hands by saying, all right, at the end of the year, we need all of that money to go here.
Doug, did you have something to add?
I was just going to say that it feels like to me this conversation should have been cut off quite a while ago. And because Tom didn't ask for anything to be decided tonight, he just asked to throw an idea out there and have it considered. And he has the right to try to put it on the menu, the agenda next month. So it's just so simple to me that we continue to discuss something that we're not supposed to be trying to decide tonight, I don't think.
Okay. All right. And with those words, I think we will draw that discussion to a close. We have a couple of not to be forgotten items that I'll just jog your memory with. Looking for a treasurer. We've addressed that with Darrell. Hopefully we'll have him on board. The ops team still searching for another member. And the budget summit in early March.
Good.
Um,
On the ops team, it isn't in the bylaws that the existing op team recommends to the board for advice and consent for an appointment. It just says the board shall appoint. Now, in the past, I think I've got this right, Todd, that the recommendations for us to appoint somebody comes from the ops team. Is there any progress that you can report, or should the board start looking for persons and then seeing if the ops team would give advice and consent if we found somebody?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be great. You're right. It is the board's obligation to make that appointment. It's sort of a courtesy thing. We'd like to, make sure it's somebody that we think, we'd be able to work well with for sure. But whether that's recommended from us to the board or the board to us, and the board would still get to decide, but it'd be nice to have input into it. But if you have ideas, for sure, I think please suggest them.
Well, I sent you a list of some persons because I realized that this uh, in the past has originated with the ops team, and also that there's it's not a hard and fast agenda, but you guys need to have somebody and people that you feel are workable in the kind of environment the ops team is. So, kind of seems reasonable to wait for suggestions from you guys. Right now, the only people that are there are by bylaws, you're part of the ops team, and Rebecca is as the operations manager by bylaws, and then the only other person is Julianne Morris at the present time. So we need at least one more because we're supposed to have a minimum of 2 members. So we're on the horns of a dilemma.
Well, it's not a major crisis because as the operations manager, Rebecca is very, very competent, but it's nice to have people to run things by and with, and also occasionally have volunteers who are willing to help. That's been useful as well as far as qualifications go, but not mandatory at this point.
Well, what is mandatory is to have at least two members. Can we just put out kind of a suggestion or a request to the board members to think about people or names that we could, in addition to the ones I funneled to Todd, for people to funnel names to Todd of people that they think they would be possible candidates and ones that the ops team could kind of give us suggestions as to what would work for them, for it.
Tom, I don't remember seeing a list from you.
Ooh, wow.
So
Yeah, I
maybe-
sent about six names. Maybe it was one of those times when I was not honoring your your days at which emails didn't go through. I will make a note to find that list.
Okay.
Um,
All right, folks, anything for the good of the order before we adjourn? Yes, Sue. Oh, can't hear you.
I think it would be important to stress how simple it is to attend the meetings because they're done by Zoom. And I've been on the team and a lot of, Rebecca is very, very competent in that position and open to ideas. But a lot of times the meetings just flow really well from my experience. And so someone wouldn't have to leave their home. And yeah, I hope the board shares some names with Todd because we should have one or two more people.
Or Rebecca. Either
Pardon?
one. Or you can share them with Rebecca or both of us.
oh,
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, because you're going on sabbatical.
Yeah.
that's right. So Rebecca,
Oh, Rebecca. Yeah.
who's going on sabbatical? I don't know anybody.
And I have one more kind of go to the order.
Yes.
Yeah, it was both in a email we all got from Todd, and then something was in the ops team report was the day the ops team meets. And Rebecca talked about moving it to either Wednesday or Thursday to put it on days that Todd would be, so to speak, available. And then in your response back on a similar topic, Todd, you said you didn't feel that you needed to be in a meeting. So I think we need a conversation about that since you're in the, bylaws, you're a member of that team and the one who makes decisions if they can't reach consensus.
Well, I'll talk about it some, but I don't think it's really something that is necessarily a major board discussion. Yeah, my management style is designation of authority and trust in my staff. And I've worked hard over the years to create a staff that I can trust to do their jobs so that I don't have to. Several years ago, we switched from a management team to an operations team and turned our office manager into an operations manager. At that point, I turned the leadership of the operations team over to the operations manager, who is very competent. After taking a 6-month administrative sabbatical and leaving it to Rebecca to handle that completely on her own without me, the sky did not fall. In fact, it worked just fine. So it works better for me, according to my contract, which is to work closely with the operations manager, to check in and have regular discussions with Rebecca about any issues that she might have or that I might have that we need to discuss with each other. And I would attend those meetings if necessary. But otherwise, that's the way I'm choosing to handle the management of the operations team through the operations manager.
May I add something? My understanding that Rebecca is very flexible, and I understood from her operations team meeting on January 13 that she is willing, if the operations team has candidates, and the candidates would love to do the meetings not in person but on Zoom, she would be willing to do that too, even though presently she has to be in her office for that meetings. And Julianne, every now and then she had to be on Zoom because she was not able to come. The last meetings were with Julianne in the office.
Lupa, do you think that extends to having the meetings in the evening if we were to be able to find someone to add to that team who was working regular office hours?
That's what I understood from Rebecca.
Okay.
Oh. So I thought all the ops team meetings were Zoom.
No.
Oh, really? Huh, okay.
No.
Yeah,
I was on Zoom, but Rebecca was inside the office and Julianne in the office.
Oh,
a
okay.
bit of a hybrid. So yeah, Rebecca's flexible on that. I mean, to an extent, we have to remember she's a single mother with 2 boys.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I hope that I think what she's saying is she's willing to change the time and day of the week if it would accommodate somebody, a qualified candidate to serve on that team.
Good.
Okay, so that suggests that we could put out feelers and include that it could be on a weekday at even in the 4 o'clock or something after kids come home from school or something. We could put that out as flexibility.
Yeah, I think so. It's possible. I would say it's possible. You might just say, I don't know.
Yeah.
I know Rebecca says she's open to it, but she also has to agree.
Yes.
Once that reality is there, So
Okay.
May
All
I,
right.
may I ask, of course I can, how many board members go off this year?
Oh, yeah. Nominating team.
Who
I'm
leads?
off.
Tom,
Yep. I'm off. There
Dick?
should be 3, I think. Aren't you off, Doug? You and I were elected at the same time.
Right.
can't-
Yeah, right.
So the 3 of you go off this year. Okay. I'll get in touch with the nominating team.
So it's Tom, Doug, and Dick?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the sooner we learn about the possibility for Darrell to be the treasurer, then that we can, formulate that into in fact, I've already written a bylaw thing because we were going to do that about a year and a half ago, and I already wrote a bylaw to allow for the appointment of a non-voting ex officio trustee who would be treasurer. So
Okay, thanks.
just need to get the go-ahead.
Okay, folks, we'll call it a day and adjourn the meeting at 5:45. Have a good evening. Have a good sabbatical month, Todd.
thank you.
Goodbye.
Y'all.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Good night.